Hello everyone, Matt Hunter here, your host for Anarchist Revolution. Today I'm going to do a follow-up video to the videos I did on Anarchist versus a status, and this is just a continuation on to those. And this video I'm going to call a case for a voluntary tax society and a case for anarchism, and why and how I think that the tax system is really the root of the problem, the fact that it's taken from us by force and it's theft. So I'll give you some examples. If people lived in a tax system or something that was set up on voluntary paying in or voluntarism, their tax rates would not be near as high as they currently are. I'll use France as an example for this video. In France right now, they passed a law stating that the higher class people in France have a 75% tax rate. 75%. That means those people that go to work every day and work hard for their earnings are only entitled to keep 25% of their wages. And around the world, tax rates are different, but even here in Canada, it's quite high. By the time you get taxed on everything you do, you go on the taxes for income, taxes for roads, taxes when you go to the grocery store, taxes for gas. So tax rates are extremely high. But I will use France as 75% for this video in particular. So as I was stating, they're taxed 75%. They're only allowed to keep 25% of their wages. Now, most of these people that are being taxed at that kind of rate, or even us in our own situations here in Canada, once we have that much money taken from us each month out of our checks, we don't really feel very charitable. We kind of feel like our charity job is done. We feel that that's where our taxpayer money is going to, that it's going to help the poor, it's going to help social welfare programs and stuff like that. Because when I argue with status, one of the core problems that statists have in believing in a voluntary society and anarchism is they're always very concerned about the poor and who will look after those people if they're not forced to get that money through violent taxation. And I would argue that people would still look after the poor in a voluntary society. And in a voluntary society, tax rates would be a hell of a lot lower. Like I said, let's use France for example. In a voluntary society in France, tax rates, I guarantee, would not be 75%, because that 75% tax rate includes a lot of government waste. Now, through years of experience of government and having this government and this current system for the last 100 years, we've realized through leaks, through government papers that have come out, and just from experience, that only cents on the dollar of your tax money actually goes to the poor. Majority of your money goes to fund things like wars, politicians' pays, for them to fly in their jets, drones, the NSA program, the domestic spying programs. I mean, have you ever walked into a government building? They're some of the nicest and fanciest built buildings in our country's lands. So a lot of the money, our taxes, doesn't actually go to the poor, doesn't actually go to the roads. People are like, well, what about the roads if we don't pay taxes? Well, look at our roads in our current states. I know here in Toronto, the highways are a disaster and there's huge traffic jam problems. So through years of experience, we've come to realize that actually only pennies on the dollar of our tax money actually goes to things that us as society donating into it would actually benefit from. And majority of the money is being spent on things that we wouldn't benefit from. Like I said, wars, big banks, subsidies, bailouts, and government contracts that go to their friends and their buddies to make themselves more richer. And I would argue that in a voluntary society, giving people the option to choose, hey, do I want to pay into the wars and stuff like that wouldn't benefit me, that's going to get people killed? No. So people would cease, wars and stuff like that would cease to exist, because no one would benefit from wars and spying on each other and fracking and all these things that we seem to draw issues with in society. Also, being able to keep your income and choose what you want to voluntarily pay into, now you have, for example, France, now they have that 75% of their money back. That's a lot of money now that they have to play. And that makes them more charitable. And And now I feel people would be more charitable if they didn't have their money already taken from them by force. A lot of people don't want to pay into charities and stuff because of taxation. They believe that it's going to good things when it's not. Another thing that I don't think most people realize, but in the U.S. alone, over $300 billion a year is donated to charities like Red Cross and stuff like that. So even on top of the high tax rates we're facing in society right now, people are still going out and donating on top of those high tax rates. So can you imagine if they could keep all of their money and not have to pay in all the waste and the money that goes to wars and all the things that you don't want it to go to? Imagine if you could keep all that money, how much more charitable you may be. If you could keep 75% of your wages like in France, and the guy walks by the homeless man in the street, he's probably going to feel a hell of a lot more charitable because he's got 75% more wealth to donate and be richer to donate with. So I believe government is the root of the problem, because they have a monopoly of a power over the initiation of force through taxation and regulations. I believe that we won't start to fix any of the problems we see in society until we get a voluntary society set up that we can pay into what we want to, so we feel like we're getting our money's worth. And I think that's when all of our issues that we're facing will begin to crumble and fall away. And things like the drug war and stuff like that would immediately end, because so many Gallup polls show that majority of people want drugs legalized, especially marijuana and those, and victimless crimes. There has to be a victim for there to be a crime. So all these programs that fund the militarization of the police, the DEA, all these things, all the waste, the money that goes to waste on these things, could then be used to go to real welfare systems and programs that would be effective. And at the end of the day, we're missing the whole main problem. And the main thing that people need to realize, that people should have to say in where they want to spend their money. It's their money. They go to work, they work for it, they earned it, they should keep 100% of it. They should choose whether they want to donate to charities and stuff. And for those who say, well, what about the people that just don't donate to charities? Well, that's fine. Who are you to steal their money? You're not allowed. Theft is wrong always. And taxation in its current form is theft. So you want to make the world a better place, spread ideas of voluntarism, check out podcasts and videos of people like Stefan Molyneux is a good one, Peter Schiff, and people like that, and just Adam Kokesh. Find like-minded people and try to understand that a lot of the problems are because we have a violent tax system and so much waste. We would never have gotten to the point of $17 trillion in debt in the States and $2 trillion in Canada. We would have never got that far in debt if we lived in a voluntary system. We would have fired the politicians the minute the books started going in the red and they started not doing their job. We would have immediately stopped funding them. It's just like a bad employee. If you're working in a company and you have an employee in there and he's a shitty employee, he's not making no money for your company, you let him go. Well, it's a lot harder to get fired in government positions because they have no accountability, because they're promised this money at the barrel of a gun. At the end of the day, they're promised their money. So in closing, I'll leave it off with voluntary tax. That's the next step. And individual rights and individuals' freedoms. And we need to get back into the individual, not this collective mentality and socialism where everyone's gotta give their money up and you gotta do it for the greater good of the world. Let people make their own decisions. What's better for the greater good of the world. This is your host, Matt Hunter for Anarchist Revolution. Hope you enjoyed my videos. Subscribe. Find me on Facebook. Like me on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. And I will keep pushing out videos, and I'll keep going to these protests, and I'll keep trying to educate the status, educating the sheeple and the people out there, and trying to be the tip of the spear for voluntarism and the non-aggression principle and anarchists out here in Toronto in my Canadian lands. And if there's any other activists and anarchists out there in Canada who want to help me and link up with me, I'm more than welcome to working with some of my fellow activists out there and linking up and making this movement a lot bigger than it is right now. because there's not many. There's Stefan Molyneux and a few others, but there's not many Canadians really delving into these issues and coming up with solutions. So I'm always open to anybody out there looking to link up and giving me a hand. Together we're strong, united we are undefeated, but divided we fall. Host for Anarchist Revolution, Matt Hunter, signing off. Have a good night.